Hey everybody, this is Tracy here for another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap Shots Fired Season 1, Hour 10, which is titled The Last Dance. And as you guys know, this was the last episode. Fox chose not to renew this series. So it was a very emotional episode, so my notes are all over the place, so bear with me. So the show opens up, and I'm like, oh my God, Lieutenant Breland did die. I could not believe they let the man die, but he did die. In response to his murder, Sheriff Platt, he's thinking back to the Wild Wild West, so he gets his deputies all energized and out with their riot gear, and then they're going to go into the black community and go door to door, I guess, snatching people out their houses. And I'm like, where they do that at? Like in 2017, is this kind of foolishness still taking place? So I'm glad that Preston and Ash showed up to let him know that what he was doing was totally illegal and he needed to stand down and get a grip, get himself together. So Ash and Preston, they go to see Breland's house to talk to his wife and Tess. And so remember in my last recap, I kept saying I couldn't remember if Breland and his wife were still together. So they were still together, and he was coming home from his shift when he was shot and killed. So Tess shares what her dad told her, the day before. And remember, I was saying that he was giving Tess all that information, so if something happened, that she would be the one to be able to tell the story. And that's exactly what happened. And so she was telling them, about Joey Campbell's murder. And then she said that he said something about he was blackmailing somebody, but he had to make it all right again. So I think that kind of like touched Ash, because she knew that she was the one that he was talking about. So afterwards, Ash goes to harass this guy, and I can't remember his name, if it was Linton or Lyndon or something, but remember a couple of episodes ago, he came in and he was giving information or something. He was going to be a witness for the police, and I can't remember if it was against Pastor Janae or who he was talking about, but anyway, Ash goes to talk to this guy, and so she's being, typical Ash. She's all up in his face, cussing him out and carrying on and telling him that, he was going to do what she told him to do. So homeboy got smart and went to his attorney, and he told Ash that, he was just trying to do the right thing and stay out of trouble, and just, because he has this garage and he wants to be able to keep his employees employed, because they were probably ex-cons also. And, he was the only one that could give him a job. And he says that he just wants to get through his parole in peace. And so after Ash left, he actually went to his lawyer and told his lawyer that Ash was trying to coerce him into changing his story. And so it got back to Preston that she had done that there. Preston confronted her about it. And, she got all up in his face about it. I'm just like, Ash, you got to soften your approach a little bit. You can't be all up in everybody's face all the time with this angry black woman attitude of yours. Then we have a scene where Preston is talking to the female replacement about Beck, and they get into a debate about whether or not they should use race when they go to the grand jury to present their case, against Deputy Beck. And she, wasn't wanting to pursue the race thing, but Preston wanted to. And so I think she told him they could go either way, that they really didn't know how it would turn out. So then there was a little short scene where Alicia was in, looked like the grocery store, or maybe it was like a department store or something, but like she was on one side of the aisle and there was this little kid on the other side of the aisle, and so they were like playing with each other, and the kid had this little blue stuffed animal, and he dropped the animal, and so Alicia walked around the aisle to pick it up, and we realized that it was Deputy Beck's wife, Carrie, and their two small kids. And so they kind of like make eye contact, and then Alicia tells Carrie that, it's going to get better, that it's not always going to be this bad. So then we go to the grand jury. So they're showing the Beck video. And so Ash is testifying and says that she thinks that Breland planted the marijuana, to control Beck, because Beck knew what happened with the Joey Campbell case. And so they were kind of like manipulating him. And they asked her, did she think that the testimony would hold up, the whole conspiracy theory about Breland and the marijuana. And she said that she did believe that it would hold up. And then I think that was when after they left that day, I think that's when he asked her, did she coerce the witness, because they never did call him to the stand. So then next up on stand was Deputy Brooks. And so Preston grills him about whether or not Beck felt that he was under any type of racial pressure. And so Brooks said that he didn't think so. And then I think he asked him about the video or something. And so he was, basically telling him that it's like hard out in those streets, and, you try to keep a level head and everything, and that he thought that Beck was doing the best that he could. So then after the first day of examination, you can tell that Preston is regretting the fact that he brought race and was using that as the focal point of him trying to get an indictment against Beck. And Ash and Preston were together, and so they were talking when a news story came on, and it was an extended version of Deputy Beck's video. Remember the video where he was saying that he was happy he became a police officer, so now he could shoot crackers. Where in the extended version, he was actually being interviewed by somebody, and it was the day that, he had graduated. And then he says, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just happy to be able to be of service to the community and to try and make a difference and all of that. So they go to the hospital where Shirlene, the reporter, is still in the hospital. And then they confront her about the fact that only the derogatory portion of the video was aired, and that she knew that there was an extended version that would have shed more light on the situation and seen him not as a racist, and that he was just joking around. And so then Shirlene said that they paid $1,000 for the video from Beck's cousin, and that I guess the newspaper, that she was working for, that was the only portion that they wanted to show. And I think it turned out that she actually leaked the full video to the media to kind of help Beck along. And so Preston and Ash, they were basically pointing out how the media will distort information, to get a rise and to sell papers and to get more people onto their website. So then the second day of the grand jury testimony, Preston closes out by saying that he thought it was about race, but it may not have been. And he says that we have a race-based justice system rooted in our biases and prejudices, and a system that led Beck to see Jesse based on race. And so when they were showing the, as they were showing the scenes of Preston in the grand jury, they're juxtaposing it to the scene of Jesse and Beck when they had the police stop. And so there was a portion in the conversation, and they may have aired this earlier in the season, where Beck asked Jesse why he was in that neighborhood, and Jesse said he was looking for fried chicken, and that's what kind of pissed Beck off, and made him get out the car. And so there was a truck that came, like a cement truck or something, a garbage truck that came through the area, and then people were questioning on Twitter, like, why was that person never questioned about the shooting, because we never saw evidence of any witnesses or whatever that could come forward and say that, they saw what happened. Then Preston, he goes on in his speech, and he's saying that, proceedings about common sense practices, and that Beck pulled over, an unarmed man who wasn't a threat and chose to escalate the situation, and that Jesse's civil rights were violated. And he says that white jurors, and I may have written this down wrong, because then when I read it, it didn't make sense. And so it said white jurors were emphasized with the victim and black jurors with the shooter. Now, I don't know if he said that because in this show, the shooter was a black man and the victim was a white guy, or did I just hear that wrong? But, in the real world, it would be that black people emphasize with the victim, because the victim is usually black, and then white people sympathize with the shooter, because that's usually a white police officer. And so he closes out, he's saying that humanity of the justice system is justified. And then he says, he starts talking about Trayvon and Tamir, and asking, like, if it had been them, would the decision be differently, or would the people see it differently? So I thought that was kind of powerful. So the grand jury, needless to say, decided to indict Deputy Beck, and they sent Brooks, his best friend, to arrest him, which I guess was a good thing. And so, he didn't handcuff him or anything. He just walked him out and put him in the back seat of the car. So, the scene with him telling Carrie goodbye was really sad. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know how much more I can take. And how are they going to wrap all of this up? So then when they got back to the sheriff's office, of course, it was a crowd had gathered and the media was there. And so a reporter, sticks her microphone in Alicia's face and asks her, what does the arrest mean to her? And then Alicia just, looked at her and walked away. She never did answer the question. And so I think it's good, even though I said last episode that she was exercising her white privilege, I don't really know how I feel about her character, because it seems like, and maybe it was the whole Pastor Janae thing, or, the fact that Preston told her that, there was going to be or insinuated that Beck would be indicted, that gave her a change of heart or what it was. But I just didn't expect her reaction to, what was going on to be what it was in this last episode. Oh, and before Beck was arrested, he was at his house with his attorney. And so they were, talking about the proceedings of the grand jury. So he pointed out, that he thought it was unfair that the prosecution gets to present their case to the jury in order to get an indictment against him, but that he's not allowed to come in and tell his side of the story. So pointing out how unfair grand juries are and how one-sided they are, and, unfair to the person. Well, I guess in this case, justice was served because he was indicted, but we all know that in most cases they don't indict the police officer. So then we have a scene with Emmons, and she's meeting with Sheriff Platt to tell him that he has been a complete failure and that she wants his resignation. And he was being a little arrogant and saying that he wasn't going to resign. But I don't understand why he was protesting, since he said he was retiring to save his marriage. But I guess since his son still had no use for him after the last episode, he figured he needed to go back to his wife and, he go ahead on and stay on as sheriff. So Preston and Ash, they are relaxing in bed together, but it's anything but relaxing, because she goes off, because she knows that deep down inside he wants to ask her, did she kill Lieutenant Breland? And I'm thinking to myself, that Ash, I don't know why you getting upset, because every viewer in America was watching this show wondering if you was that doggone crazy to have gone out and shot that man, but she felt like, he should have been, by her side and believing in her and all this nonsense. And I'm like, girl, please, that man know you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he wanted to believe that you wouldn't do that, but there was just that little bit of doubt that was left in his mind, so she says that their whole relationship was a mistake, and that I do agree with, because even at the end of the show, I still wish that they had not gotten those two together in a romantic relationship. I just did not like that part of the show. So then next up was the grand jury for Joey's case, and whether or not they could get an indictment for Arlen Cox. And so Shamika is on the stand testifying, and she's talking about the day that Joey was killed and how he had met this girl and he had wanted to go to her house, and she had told him not to be gone long and to hurry up and come back home. But then as more and more time was passing before he returned, she knew something was going on. And then Lieutenant Breland and another officer showed up at her house and told her, that Joey had been killed, and, that they thought he had been dealing drugs, and they wanted to search the house. And then they, came back with the bag of marijuana and told her, basically threatened her that if she didn't just accept the fact that her child had been murdered, that they were going to use the drugs against her to have her other kids removed from the house. So after Shamika's testimony, the female replacement, and I don't know why I don't know her name, but y'all know my history with forgetting people's names. So she's ready to rest the case, but for some reason, Preston wanted Arlen Cox to take the stand, and at this moment, he really should have listened to that woman because she obviously had more experience than him. So Arlen Cox gets up on the stand, and he basically says that he was scared for his life, Joey was scared for his life, and that Lieutenant Breland had escalated the situation until Joey kicked him in the shin, and that, he had fell down on the ground, and so he was getting up, and he was going to pull his taser out to tase Joey to get him to calm down, but he accidentally pulled his gun and shot him. Then Arlen Cox was also saying that Joey, and so while Arlen Cox was testifying, they had scenes of, sort of like they did with the other case where they were juxtapositioning the actual event that unfolded with the people that were testifying. And so they had chased Joey, and then when they called up with him, they were asking him, did he have drugs on him? Did he have a weapon on him? And all this stuff. And then when they had threw him down to the ground, he was calling for his mom and telling people to, call my mom. Can someone call my mom? And then we could see the crowd gathered outside the courthouse, and they were holding these signs and shelling, someone call my justice, someone call my justice. I was like, whew, okay, that was deep. So when Preston was leaving the courtroom that day, Lieutenant Breland's attorney stopped him and said that he thought that there was some information in the storage room somewhere, because he said that Breland kept saying something about, a storage room and some information that he had. And so he thought that it may be something that could help their case. The jury decided to not indict Arlen Cox. Imagine that. And so Shamika Campbell, she was breaking my heart, because when Preston and the second replacement came out of the courthouse, she was like, I'm not talking to these people, because it was people, gathered outside and the media and everything. And so she walked off. So Preston had to address the crowd and let them know that the grand jury decided not to indict Arlen Cox for the death of Joey Campbell. And so, he was, giving his heartfelt apologies and, letting them know that he had did all that he could do. And so, the crowd was getting upset, and they were saying, let's burn this city down. We're not taking this anymore. And then Shamika Campbell, silenced the crowd so that she could talk. And so she was basically telling them, that she didn't want this and that it wasn't going to help Joey. And it wasn't going to help Joey's case, and that they needed to organize so that they could stand up, to the racism and oppression in the community. And it was really touching and heartfelt, because what that scene was they were paying homage to Leslie McFadden, who was Mike Brown. Because if you remember the scene before the riots in Ferguson, where she was addressing the crowd after the grand jury failed to indict Darren Wilson for his murder. And then also Mike Brown turned 21 a couple of days ago. So I thought that was a nice touch, and the fact that this episode aired on the same week as his birthday. So then after Preston left the courthouse, so he's trying to figure out something like, we got to get a way to make somebody be held accountable, for Joey's death. And so he wanted to indict Sheriff Platt, because he, for conspiracy, because he was a part of the whole thing and he covered it up, but the second replacement, well, actually it wasn't the second replacement, him and Ash called to speak to Carol, but Carol wasn't in, so they ended up talking to Ruiz, the assistant deputy director of the Department of Justice, and he basically was like, it's over, it's done with, the case is over, you guys need to come back, there's nothing else to investigate. But then Preston went to see Breland's wife, and so he got there and he was asking them about the storage unit, and her and Tess told him that they had actually found the key to the storage unit, but they didn't know where the storage unit was or what was in the storage unit. And then she added that she had given the key to Sheriff Platt, who had left like moments before Preston pulled up. So I'm like, oh my Lord. So then Preston leaves and he goes and he calls Breland's attorney, and the attorney says, oh, I talked to Ash, whatever Ash is, Aquino. They had talked to Aquino and given her the name and address of the storage facility. So I'm sure that Preston was thinking, just like the rest of us, that Ash was going to that storage unit trying to figure out if Breland had anything in there about the night that they stopped her and whatever blackmail information that he had on her. But when Preston gets to the storage unit, Ash wasn't there. So he ended up breaking into the unit, and he's going through everything, and he uncovers a recording device. And we find out that Breland had been recording his conversation with Sheriff Platt. Remember the day that he had went to his house and, pretty much knew that Sheriff Platt was about to throw him under the bus. And so Sheriff Platt comes up and has the nerve to pull a gun on Preston and tell Preston that, he was under arrest for breaking and entering. And, he's trying to get Preston to give him the recording device. And then McGirl Ash rose up on the scene and was like, excuse me, I just left Governor Emmons and she rushed the process to get us a search warrant for this unit. And I'm going to need you to put that gun down. So I was just like, yes. Yes. This is why we needed a second season, because I don't like how they rush both of the grand jury trials, because I think I told y'all this before, like the whole second season in my mind was going to be all these, the grand jury meeting and then the officers, because we knew Beck was going to get indicted, and him going on trial. And then this would have been like another element, where they expose Sheriff Platt. And yeah, it was just so much that they could have dealt with this show for a second season, but unfortunately, we're not going to get that opportunity. So let's see what else happened. So I think the rest of the show, was just like a lot of little touching scenes. Like there was a scene with Ash and Preston, and he was feeling bad about the fact that they didn't get the indictment, and so she hugs him, tender caress, supportive. Like, I'm sorry, things didn't work out for you today. And then there was a scene with Preston and the female replacement, and she tells him that, nothing much inspires her anymore. I guess because she just keeps going through this, and justice is never served. But she said that working with him, had inspired her, and that, he shouldn't feel bad about how things turned out because he did what he thought was best. I don't know how I forgot this, because this was the most damn important part of the show. I must really be tired. So when they were at the doggone storage unit, why did we find out that Sheriff Platt was the one that killed Breland? Oh my God, how did I forget that? I totally forgot that. But yes, Sheriff Platt was the one that killed Breland. So thank you, Lord, that was not Ash in that car. And then Breland also, like I said, he saw whoever killed him. So the look on his face was just total shock when he turned around and realized that Sheriff Platt was pointing that gun at him. So then Platt had the audacity to want somebody to cut a deal with him. This man done falsified training records, covered for Arlen Cox, and killed one of his own lieutenants on the force, and he wants a deal. Like, how does any of that work? Like, how do you fix your mouth to, like, what could he possibly say that would make them want to give him a deal? Like, what information or evidence does he have that's going to help his case? I don't know. But the show, it closes out, as I was saying, with these little touching moments. Pastor Janae, she was having a little meeting at her church, and she was encouraging the people to register to vote. And so she was telling them that, if you're not registered to vote, then of course you can't be in the jury pool, which is why I think they need to change the law to not pull people for jury duty based on whether or not they're registered to vote, but whether or not they should use driver's license records. And I mean, I guess that would, I don't know, but I just think it has to be a better way, because I know personally I have been called for jury duty about 4 or 5 times, but it was always on these little stupid misdemeanor cases. Like, I've never been called for jury duty to be on like a murder trial or anything major. Not sure if I would want to. Like, would I want to be on a jury where like a cop has killed a black person? I don't know how that would work out. But anyway, even if you're black and registered to vote, if you get called for jury duty, chances are you will not be called for jury duty to sit on a case that has significance, like, you know, a murder trial or something like that. It's not going to happen. So then somebody stood up in the audience and told Pastor Janae that they were going to register to vote, but it was going to be so that she could run for office and they could vote for her. Then she has Deputy Brooks there to come in and talk to the people. And I'm just thinking it's too soon, Pastor Janae. But he gets up there and basically he wants to talk about community policing and saying that he wants to build a relationship with the people in the community so that there's trust. And he thinks that that's like the first step to the sheriff's department doing a better job, is that if they know the residents in the community, they're less likely to profile them or be quick to kill them. So there was a scene, I can't remember where it happened in the show, but it was a scene where Jesse and Joey actually encountered each other. You know, and instead of being, you know, an issue between the two of them, you know, they actually like gave each other pound and everything. And I just thought that was like a interesting scene because, you know, neither of them knew that their lives would intersect, you know, later on in the way that it did and changed an entire community. So I thought that was another good touch that they added in. And then I think the last scene of the show, Preston hands Arlen Cox a list of civil rights violations that he plans to pursue until he gets him locked up. So I'm thinking, Arlen, you might just want to plead guilty to a couple of them violations so you can just go and take your punishment like a man and get Preston off your trail, because I think he's pretty determined to get you in a jail cell with Sheriff Platt. So that was it for me, guys. It was an awesome episode, considering they had to wrap things up really quickly. It was a wonderful series, and I'm just still praying to the TV gods that somebody will come along and offer the Bythewoods an opportunity to resurrect this series, because it is an awesome series. It was a story that needed to be told, and unfortunately, you know, white America didn't want to tune in, and that's why the show was canceled. But anyway, let me know what you thought about the season finale, what you thought about the series. Leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, guys, I will talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.